July 1921. The sun scorches the rocky hills of northern Morocco. Spanish soldiers march under its blazing fury, unaware that within days their empire will face its greatest humiliation since the Napoleonic Wars. What unfolded was not just a battle, but a complete collapse. A massacre, a disaster so devastating it shook Spain to its core and sparked rebellion across its empire. This is the story of the Battle of Anwal. By the early 20th century, Spain was desperate to reclaim its place among the great empires. Having lost Cuba and the Philippines in 1898, its pride was wounded. But there was one place left to conquer: the Rif Mountains of northern Morocco. In 1906, the Algeciras Conference handed Spain control over the so-called Spanish Protectorate in northern Morocco, while France took the south. On paper, it was a colonial arrangement. In reality, it was a time bomb. The land was rough, the tribes were fierce, and the Rifians, led by a man named Muhammad Ibn Abdal Karim al-Khattabi, were about to become Spain's worst nightmare. The Rif was no ordinary land. Towering mountains, harsh terrain, tribes who had fought off Romans, Arabs, Ottomans, and now Spaniards. Spain's strategy? Build a long chain of forts, each manned by a few dozen to a few hundred soldiers, stretching deep into enemy territory. But the deeper they went, the thinner they were spread. It was military arrogance, begging for disaster. And in 1921, that disaster had a name: Anwal. General Manuel Fernandez Silvestre, commander of Spanish forces, was a man of ambition and recklessness. He wanted glory, fast. Against all advice, he pushed his men further east from the city of Melilla into the Rif. They built a forward base at Anwal, isolated, exposed, poorly supplied. Over 20,000 Spanish troops spread thin across rough terrain without proper roads or communications. And facing them, tens of thousands of Rifian warriors united by Abdal Karim. He had been watching, waiting, planning. On July 22, 1921, all hell broke loose. The Rifians launched a surprise attack on Anwal. At first, the Spanish thought they could hold, but panic set in. Ammunition ran low. Orders became confused. Soldiers began fleeing, not just from Anwal, but from every fort along the line. It was a chain reaction of collapse. Within 12 days, the entire Spanish front had disintegrated. What began as a skirmish became a slaughter. Spanish soldiers, exhausted, dehydrated, terrified, fled across the desert. But the Rifians were everywhere. They captured Spanish supplies, weapons, even artillery. One by one, Spanish forts fell. Some surrendered, others were overrun. Entire regiments vanished. In one horror, the Rifians reportedly opened fire on surrendering troops. By the end, over 13,000 Spanish soldiers were dead. Their weapons? Taken. Their pride? Broken. General Silvestre, unwilling to face the humiliation, took his own life. News of the disaster rocked Spain. 13,000 dead, thousands more missing or captured. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a national trauma. The press called it a betrayal. Families demanded answers. Soldiers' bodies were left to rot in the sun. The government collapsed. King Alfonso XIII, who had encouraged Silvestre's advance, was accused of complicity. And in the shadows, anger brewed. Among the military, among the people. This humiliation would not be forgotten. And years later, it would help pave the way for the rise of Francisco Franco. But who was the man who defeated an empire? Muhammad Ibn Abdal Karim al-Khattabi, scholar, qadi, judge, former Spanish administrator. He understood his enemy, and he used Spain's arrogance against them. After Anwal, he declared the Republic of the Rif, a bold, independent state carved from colonial arrogance. He became a legend, a hero to anti-colonial movements from Algeria to Vietnam. Even Ho Chi Minh would later say, Abdal Karim was one of the greatest leaders of our time, but his defiance wouldn't last forever. Spain could not accept defeat. In 1925, it returned, this time with help from France. Over 250,000 troops, tanks, planes, poison gas. Yes, chemical weapons were used against the Rifians. The war turned brutal. Villages bombed, civilians gassed. The resistance faltered. In 1926, Abdal Karim surrendered to the French. His republic was crushed, but his legend lived on. The Battle of Anwal remains one of the worst military defeats in modern European history, a warning against hubris, a lesson in guerrilla warfare, and a symbol of colonial resistance. For Morocco, it was the spark of national pride. For Spain, it was a wound that never fully healed, but history remembers. And in the mountains of the Rif, the echoes of that battle still whisper in the wind. If you found this story as shocking as we did, like the video and subscribe for more history that changed the world. And remember, even empires bleed.